Hello everyone, and today we're going to be having a look at the Thunder Dragon branded fusion deck. Now, there's a couple of ways to play this. Again, there's a ton of ways of playing any deck in the game. However, whenever I was testing this, I found that there was two main sort of routes you could go down whenever you were building it. You could build basically the easiest way to describe it is a Thunder Dragon deck with branded built in, or a branded deck with Thunder Dragon built in. So it's basically the size of the packages, but it does have a pretty drastic impact on how the deck itself is played. The one I'm having a slightly more fun with, and I think is maybe a little bit better, is going to be the Thunder Dragon branded deck, which is the Thunder Dragon deck with the branded package mixed in, so it's a very sort of minimal amount. So this is the deck list we're dealing with. We're going to be doing a full deck breakdown at the end, so stick around for that and watch the gameplay so you can sort of contextualize a lot of this. We're playing a relatively small branded package. You've got the 3 fusion, 1 of each of the main Despia monsters, which I'll be honest, the only one I would increase would be Aliber. I think the other 2 are fine at 1 in this particular version. And then you're playing your Thunder Dragon cards around that as your main engine. Now, there are certain things about this I would potentially change, but everything in this deck has its place, and I will explain that fully at the end. So if that's something you're interested in, or if you want to see any other sort of cool variations and mix-ups with various decks like this one, again, feel free to subscribe. We try to get as much content out here as we can to make it as good as we can, and you can leave your suggestions down below for things we're going to be looking at. I know Blue Eyes and Buster Blader is next basically on the list, or at least they're in the works at the minute, as well as a branded Dark Magician deck as well. So we're trying to mix it up with some of the classics, you know, have a bit of fun with the concept of the overarching powerful fusion spell, branded fusion. But yeah, we're just trying to have fun with it, and this version of the deck has been pretty successful. Been going on decent win streaks, sort of, you know, 3, 4, 5 wins, and this is like early days platinum, the 1st of October. So this is like, these are diamond players. But yeah, pretty much, it's been an awful lot of fun. Lots of really cool opponents as well, so the gameplay is very entertaining. So, without further ado, let's get into game number 1. Alright, getting into game 1, we have an interesting hand, not exactly super powerful. We're going to open up with a Thunder Dragon's effect here, just to test if he had Ash. We didn't feel any delays here, so we feel confident in going into Aliber to grab our branded fusion. A branded fusion, of course, because we don't really have any way of banishing or manipulating the graveyard, we're just going to go for these standard sort of plays. Go into Lebellion with the Tragedy, ditch your Thunder Dragon, the fusion again, grab the Ad Libitum as part of your standard strategy. So this has the full strength of a standard Despia build, like this combo right here that we've just done. We're going to banish the Aliber. We did make a small mistake here. We no longer have a Despia target in the graveyard, but because we had Light and Dark in the grave, we were able to banish those to go into Duo, this guy here, and then get rid of Duo to go into Colossus. So we've locked our opponent out of searching their deck for cards, and we're also going to set Branded in red. However, small mistake, we didn't have any targets in our graveyard to target off of the Branded in red. Not that it would have mattered, considering we're getting hit with a Lava Golem, and our opponent also had a Call by the Grave. So they're going to negate the Mirror Jade's nuke effect for the end of the turn. So, you know, ultimately not that great. We had a decent first turn, but our opponents managed to turn it around here. Our opponent's playing Wind Witch, which I thought was just going to be a blowout. I thought we were going to be able to recover from this quite easily, but our opponent actually does a significant amount of damage here. So he's going to resolve his 2 Wind Witches here. This is his main sort of combo. Then the Snowbell comes out as well. He's going to Synchro Summon into the Wind Witch Winterbell. Winterbell is going to inflict some damage here, and then he's going to Synchro Summon into Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon, so that's a negate, and it's basically impossible to destroy by battle. So you really got to be careful with this guy. Monster Reborn, of course, bringing back his Winterbell. He's going to gain 3,000 attack points when he swings into our Lava Golem. He's going to inflict a serious amount of damage here, so we're down to 1,300 life and not a lot of options. So we're going to have to be careful here. We draw into the Fallen of Albaz. We're going to banish the Dark from the graveyard to summon our White Dragon Wyver Burster, and they're going to go for Magic Cylinders. So the Magical Cylinder is really, really interesting. It sets a Magic Cylinder from the deck. What I didn't read is that it can be activated this turn, so you're going to notice a slight misplay, but we do recover from it. We're going to link summon here into Striker Dragon. So Striker Dragon, that's going to trigger our White Dragon to search for the Black Dragon, summon the Black Dragon, then link summon into Verte Anaconda. Now, one of the stipulations on Branded Fusion is that on the turn you activate the card, you cannot summon anything from the extra deck except fusion monsters. However, if you mimic it using the effect of Verte Anaconda, you're not activating Branded Fusion. I think in this circumstance we go for Thunder. We just targeted his Crystal Wing. We were just trying to bait out that Crystal Wing again. And now that he has negated the Verte Anaconda, we can actually use the normal summon effect of the Fallen of Albaz, discard one to fuse with his Crystal Wing to summon out our Mirror Jade. So Albaz here really coming in clutch. We're going to swing into the Winter Bell. We forgot about the Magic Cylinders, but luckily we now have a target for Branded in red. And Magic Cylinders does in fact target the monster whenever it declares an attack. So we're going to fuse using all 3 of our monsters to go into the Guardian Chimera. And the target for Magic Cylinders is no longer on the field, so we don't take any damage. Guardian Chimera, pop 1, draw 2. And Libitum is going to resummon the Mirror Jade. Now remember, the Mirror Jade's effect is currently negated by Call by the Grave. So that's why we didn't just banish the Winter Bell or anything like that. We're going to have to take it out using the Chimera, swing in for 3k, and we can't attack directly with Chimera because it was summoned off Branded in red. We're going to use the Roar's effect to grab Duel because we're setting this up for next turn so that this guy can banish the Roar from the graveyard on the following turn. So we're setting up our combo for the next turn. He's going to go for his standard Wind Witch combo here, so the Glass Bell is going to surge to the Ace Bell, is just going to do some damage. We're going to negate the Glass Bell because we don't need him getting any more cards. We're also going to preemptively remove that Ace Bell as well from the field because we don't need him going into any more synchro plays. We're very low in life points. We can't afford to be taking any more risks when it comes to effect damage. Our opponent's going to go for a Chicken Game here. Now, Chicken Game does give him an extra card, but so long as this is face up, the player with the least life points takes no damage. So we're pretty safe down at 800 life. We're going to grab a Fallen of Albaz during the end phase thanks to our Brigand. Drawing the Call by the Grave, which isn't the greatest, but it's fine. Banish 2 to summon a Duo. Duo summons Dark. And then we summon our Fallen of Albaz, just putting up a bunch of monsters on board, and we're just going to overflow our opponent here with damage. Very simple sort of destruction there towards the end. But yeah, I mean, even the opening turns showed that the deck's very, very powerful. It can summon out big monsters like your Mirror Jade, set up your Chimera, and as well as that, which is the standard play of most of your Despia decks, it's also setting up something like a Colossus or a Titan, which is pretty nuts. So the idea is that it's going to have the base power of a Branded deck, i.e. the Mirror Jade with Chimera follow-up, but it's also going to be incorporating the control of like the Thunder Dragon Colossus and the power of the Titan, as well as the resource flexibility. Again, Thunder Dragons, one of the biggest reasons I love that deck so much is it constantly cycles its own resources. It always has a play, you can always do something. So I am really a really big fan of this particular mix. But I'm going to stop rambling. Let's get into game number 2. Alrighty, getting into game number 2. Again, not the greatest of opening hands. We are bricking on this Thunder Dragon a lot. We did feel a delay here on the Thunder Dragon, but an important thing about reading delay is we felt a delay on activation, but we also felt a delay on resolution, meaning that it wasn't just an Ash Blossom. We knew he had Maxi in his hand, so we decided we're safe enough to activate the Branded Fusion because it's unlikely that he has both Maxi and an Ash Blossom. So there was a reason behind us doing what we did. Gonna go for the Branded Fusion. We don't mind giving him a card or two, to be honest. We're not going to be summoning loads. Gonna summon out our Lubellion here. Lubellion, then of course discarding a card to fusion summon again. Having these Thunder Dragons in your hand, not necessarily the worst thing because it's very good discard fodder, but our opponent not only had Maxi, also now has Effect Veiler, so we're going to try and protect our play, because if this doesn't go through, we don't have much. We're going to go for Branded in red, but that's also going to get negated by the Ghost Bell, so he's hit us with Maxi, Effect Veiler, and Ghost Bell thus far. We are still going to be able to search using our Tragedy. It's going to grab us an Aliber, so that's pretty nice at least. Lubellion gets negated. We're going to use Aliber to try and grab Branded in red, but that doesn't work. So Aliber is also negated. So yeah, not a lot going on our field. Yes, our opponent hit us with 4 hand traps turn 1, but at the same time they don't have very many cards left in hand, and we have one of our own, so we're not exactly out of the game. But our opponent has definitely put us in a rough spot. They're going to set 3 and pass. They're clearly playing some sort of stun or control deck. I'm going to draw into the Thunder Dragon Roar, which is great. The Tragedy is going to set Branded in Red to our field. We're going to tribute summon our Roar, then link off into Predaplant Verte Anaconda. That's going to trigger the Roar's effect to summon a Dark from our deck. Verte Anaconda then sending Fusion, Thunder Dragon Fusion for deck the graveyard. We were hoping to set up a play here with the Thunder Dragon. Basically what the idea was, we would be able to summon out Thunder Dragon Titan. We would discard a Thunder Dragon to destroy a card on the field using the Titan. We could do that twice, because we discard one, add one, pop, discard one, add one, pop. And that would also satisfy the conditions for us to tribute our Dark to go into Colossus. So we were setting up quite a big play there. We were going to summon both Titan and Colossus and go for some big damage, but unfortunately our opponent sees it coming and foils our plan. So yes, the Dark comes back to our hand. We still have Branded in Red, we still have Effective Healer, so we're not out of the game by any stretch of the imagination. Our opponent goes for Pot of Duality here, and this is an interaction you don't see a lot whenever you're playing just Despia. Whenever you return a card back to your hand off of Branded in Red, you don't have to use that card in your Fusion Summon. So using our Branded in Red here, I believe I target the Aliber, yes, but we're going to fuse the Thunder Dragon Dark and the Thunder Dragon to go into Colossus. We're not going to use the Aliber in the hand because we don't need to. Our opponent's going to reveal 3 from Pot of Duality, but he can't add a card from deck to hand, so the card he chooses instead goes to the graveyard. We go to add a card from deck to hand here using our Dark, but he ashes us, so we've been hit with Ghost Spell, Maxi, Effective Healer, Ash, Imperm, a Solemn Strike, a second Imperm, and now he's going to go for his Guru. Luckily we have a Veiler of our own, finally getting our own little interruption in there, so we're going to negate that Guru. Now the Guru's still a threat because he of course has the Archer here, so the Guru has a secondary effect to flip basically a card face down. It's not a massive thing because we can typically just flip it back face up again during the main phases at least, so it's not a huge threat. Gonna discard the Roar to add back Thunder Dragon Fusion. Our opponent sees what's coming here. We Thunder Dragon Fuse in the Titan, we get pop and we get summoning, and it just spirals out of control because we also would have had the ability to normal summon Aliber to grab another Branded Fusion. So we would have Branded Fusion, Thunder Dragon Fusion, we already had the Colossus. It was going to be nuts. So, and our opponent basically saw that and decided he has better things to do with his day. But yeah, again, very, very fun game. I'm loving all of these really cool decks, and they're being piloted by competent players. These are strong strategies. We got interrupted like 6 or 7 times there. And again, we just managed to play through it like it was nothing. So really, really strong showing from both sides. Our opponent had a really cool deck as well, so I'm not going to count him out. He did really well. It's just that we had the upper hand. We had to follow up the consistency, just the power to plow through interruption, plow through turns, and the staying power, which a lot of decks lack, the ability to stay in a game. But yes, that's it for game number 2. Let's get into game number 3. Alright, getting into game 3 here, and we actually have quite a good hand. Although not for going first, we have a very good going second hand. We're just going to set our Cult by the Grave and pass. Our opponent's going to blow it up a Lightning Storm, but I'm honestly not all that upset by that. They're going to go for the Branded Fusion here, so we're going to go for Ash Blossom, trying to negate the Branded Fusion, but of course they have a Cult by the Grave of their own. We're going to take that opportunity to use our Maxi, just so that we can at least hopefully draw into an Effective Healer or something like that to try and stop this Lebellion. I know it's on the off chance, but we're just sort of praying and hoping. At this point, what else do you really have to do? Our opponent's going to Fusion Summon into the Lebellion here as expected. We draw into Allure of Darkness, which is a very powerful card. The Lebellion then is going to use its effect to fuse. The Tragedy as well is going to get its effect. So Lebellion will fuse, of course, just standard into the Mirror Jade. Mirror Jade having that non-targeting banish, making it a big threat. We draw into Ad Libitum, which is nice for the follow-up. He's going to search for Branded Opening here, and he's just going to swing in and do 4,800 points of damage. So yes, it's a solid chunk of damage, but it's definitely not the end of the game. He sets 2 and pass. We can only assume one of those is Branded Opening. and the other one may be something like branded in red. We're going to open up here with Allure of Darkness, draw 2, banish 1. Because we banish the Roar, it will summon out the Dark from the deck. We're going to use Thunder Dragon in our hand, discard to add 1. Then we're going to tribute the Dark to go into Colossus. This is us trying to get him to use his Mirror Jade. Colossus doesn't add a ton of value for us right now. We're going to add Thunder Dragon Fusion to hand. We're going to discard Thunder Dragon to add another one to our hand to give us enough materials to use the Thunder Dragon Fusion. Return 3 back into the deck to summon our Titan. Now at this stage our opponent's going to realize Titan's a huge threat. We're not going to allow that to sit on the field, so he banishes it. That frees us up to use our branded fusion. We're going to send 2 to summon the Lebellion. We do have to use the Tragedy in hand. That's the disappointing side of playing 1 copy instead of 2. But you know, it is what it is. It doesn't happen very often. Tragedy is going to grab us the Aliber from the deck, and then Lebellion here is going to be able to shuffle back Titan and our Albaz to summon out Mirror Jade, a Mirror Jade of our own. Our opponent though has this super polymerization, combining 2 of our monsters into the Predaplant Dragostapelia. That is huge. Although we do have the Mirror Jade and the nuke his field in the end phase, our opponent still of course has the option of using the branded opening. He's going to negate our Aliber here using the Dragostapelia. We don't have much of an option here except but to pass. He's going to go for branded in red, going to revive a card here back to his hand. There's his Tragedy. He's going to fuse 3 here into the Chimera. Chimera of course going to pop 2, draw 1 because 2 monsters are on the field, 1 was in the hand. Tragedy then going to search his deck for another Despia monster for the follow-up. He's going to grab an Aliber. So we're in really rough spot. There's not really any feasible way to come back from that. We were really relying on the Mirror Jade nuking his board, but unfortunately the branded opening protecting him basically sealed our fate. We weren't going to stick around any longer just to get punched by that stupid Chimera. Such is life. Sometimes you just can't win. But yeah, we put up a pretty admirable fight there. Our opponent having that super polymerization really hurt us. I think if he didn't have that super poly, we would have been in for a much more even game. But it's in his deck, you know. I guess he's just better. What are you gonna do about it? Yeah, so that's gonna wrap us up for game 3. We're gonna get into the deck profile because we do have quite a bit to talk about. So let's get in there and get it sorted. Alrighty, so getting into the deck profile here. Now, we have played both Despia on the channel, the branded on the channel, and we played Thunder Dragons on the channel, God knows how many times. So I'm not going to spend too long covering all of this because we do have a lot of things to talk about. First things first, of course, the hand traps. We're playing triple Veiler, triple Max C, triple Ash, and double Call by the Grave. So those slots can be whatever you want. Those are just the ones that I opted for. You can play Imperm, you can play whatever you want there. It's entirely up to you. And how then does the rest of the deck work? So we're going to break it into the packages, and we're going to start with the branded. So 3 copies of branded fusion, of course, is your main starter for the branded package. It will typically send your Fallen of Albaz and something like either a Tragedy or one of your Dark Thunder Dragons from the deck to the graveyard to summon out your Lebellion. Lebellion's effect then will allow you to summon out Mirror Jade. And if you send Tragedy to the graveyard, you're also going to be able to search for a Despia monster. And if you use one of your dragons, typically you're going to be doing so because you have a method of banishing it, which we're going to get to. So yeah, Branded Fusion, of course, is the main starter for that package. We have Branded in red, which is your main follow-up to summon a Chimera on your opponent's turn. Target a Despia or Albaz in the graveyard, add it back to hand, then conduct a fusion summon. So the idea is Branded Fusion is going to put a Mirror Jade on your field on your turn, then on your opponent's turn you're going to use Branded in red to summon a Guardian Chimera. That's the main play. And what are the monsters to facilitate that? You've got the 4 monsters to facilitate that. The Despian Tragedy, of course, if it's sent to the graveyard, it will search for a Despia monster. It's normally going to search for your Ad Libitum of Despia. Ad Libitum is going to basically, when it uses fusion material, it's going to re-summon one of your level 8 or higher fusions, and it'll be used as material from Branded in red. And lastly then is Aliber, which is not lastly, sorry, Aliber here is going to on summon search for a branded spell or trap card, so it'll either grab your Branded Fusion, or if you already have your Branded Fusion, you can grab Branded in red. And lastly is Fallen of Albaz, who is here for his name and nothing else. His effect does occasionally come up, you did see it in the gameplay. It is kind of nice on occasion, so don't count it out. It is definitely still an option, but mainly here for his name. I don't like playing more than 2 of him, but I think 1 copy of him is it makes your branded engine very frail. So do whatever you want in terms of counts. I think 1 of each of the Despia is fine. I think if you want to step anything up, you can step Aliber up in place of potentially something like the Chaos Base engine, but I like it the way I'm playing it at the minute. So that's the branded package. Really straightforward. Your branded fusion summons out your Mirror Jade. Mirror Jade's effect will send Albion to the graveyard. Albion will set your branded in red. That's your full combo. So what does the rest of the deck do then? You're of course playing with your Thunder Dragons. So the objective of Thunder Dragons in this version of the deck is primarily trying to just put out a Colossus or a Colossus and a Titan. So having your Mirror Jade and the Chimera follow-up is already a powerful enough play, but forcing your opponent to play through that many removal cards while restricting their ability to generate further card advantage is going to be even more detrimental. And the Colossus is a difficult monster to get rid of, and it's also a very easy monster to summon and very easy to recycle. So Colossus is amazing. So long as it's face up, your opponent cannot add cards from their deck to their hand except by drawing them. So no more searching for cards for your opponent. It's going to make life very difficult for them. And then your Titan is more of your bruiser. If you use a Thunder effect in hand, this guy gets to pop a card, and that's a quick effect. So basically you just want to get popping cards and swinging here with your 3200 attack points. These guys are summoned off of Thunder Dragon Fusion, which shuffles monsters back into your deck to fuse, so that's what makes your Colossus so easy to recycle. So that's your objective. How are you actually getting there? So your main 3 Thunder Dragons is of course Thunder Dragon Dark, Thunder Dragon Roar, and Thunder Dragon Hawk. So these are the Holy Trinity when it comes to Thunder Dragons. You mainly want to banish the Dark and the Roar. Whenever the Dark is banished, it will search your deck for a Thunder Dragon card, normally the Hawk. Whenever Roar is banished, it will special summon a Thunder Dragon monster from your deck to the field, normally your Dark, so you can then send Dark to the graveyard to use its effect to search for the Hawk. So your objective of these guys is to get them either banished or sent to the graveyard so you can get the Hawk into your hand. Hawk will discard itself to resurrect one of your Thunder Dragons that's either banished or in your graveyard. That sets up your Colossus, because your Colossus, all you need to do to summon it is control a Thunder monster and have activated a Thunder effect in your hand earlier in the turn. So discarding the Thunder Dragon Hawk meets that condition, and it revives a Thunder Dragon onto the field, which meets the other condition. So that's an instant Colossus. Very easy to do. All you need to do is banish one of these 2 guys or send them from the field to the graveyard. So how are you accomplishing that goal? You have a couple of ways of doing it. The most effective way is going to be Gold Sarcophagus. This is the most direct method of doing it, the most no nonsense. Gold Sarc will either banish the Roar to summon the Dark, so then you can send Dark to the graveyard and do it that way, or you can just straight up banish the Dark and search for your Hawk that way. So Gold Sarc is amazing because it also works with your Despian Tragedy. If you can banish the Tragedy if you want to search your deck for a Despia monster, so it also means that it's essentially another copy of Aliber. So Gold Sarc adds a lot of versatility to this deck. I really do love this card here. Allure of Darkness is going to be the best way of doing it. While it's not as direct as Gold Sarc, it's going to generate significantly more advantage, because if you draw 2 and then manage to banish one of these 2 guys or even your Tragedy, the amount of advantage you're going to generate off of that is insane. Allure of Darkness is amazing in this deck. Very straightforward. Draw 2, banish a Dark monster, and then you get to go into your Colossus if you got one of these 2 guys, or your Tragedy can search if you've got it. It makes everything else in the deck so much more consistent. And lastly, we have Chaos Space. So if you have Chaos Space plus either of your 2 Dark Dragons, Chaos Space will allow you to discard one of these 2 guys to search for your White Dragon Wyverburster. White Dragon Wyverburster can then banish the Dark monster in the graveyard to summon itself. So that's going to meet the condition of banishing your Dark Dragons. The Wyverburster as well, when it's sent to the graveyard, will search for your Black Dragon Collapsarbant. So you can look at this card as a 1-card Mirror Jade or a 1-card Predaplant for 10 Hakonda. Because basically what it will do is it will search for your White Dragon or your Black Dragon. You'll link summon into Striker Dragon. That will trigger the effect of one of these guys to search for the other. You then summon the other, link with your remaining dragon and your striker dragon into Vertanaconda. Vertanaconda will send Branded Fusion from deck to graveyard to combine itself with a Fallen of Albaz. There's your Mirror Jade, or it can potentially send a Thunder Dragon Fusion instead if you want to do it that way. But yeah, so this does, again, you can totally cut this out or down to play more Aliber or more hand traps. By all means, you totally can do that. I was definitely considering it. But again, I just wanted to keep it sort of very Thunder Dragon-esque for this version, and having the Chaos Space in there, it's just a very good way of doing it. I'm a big fan. The extra card advantage it generates, the more consistent it makes your Colossus. I just really like this engine, but you can totally cut it for more Despia stuff. I am rambling here, so what cards have we not covered? Thunder Dragon Fusion we've already sort of talked about. It's very easily searchable from your dark, so it's like a follow-up or secondary search option. That's the main deck pretty much covered. It's really straightforward. The extra deck is even more straightforward. So Colossus and Titan, of course, are your big Thunder Dragon boss monsters. We've already talked about those. Mirror Jade, we've already talked about. Basically non-targeting banishment by sending one of your Albaz fusions from deck to graveyard. These guys all have effects that activate at the end phase of the turn as well while in the grave. These two are just going to search your deck for a Fallen of Albaz. This guy is going to search your deck for Branded in red. So lots of follow-up there from those guys. Lebellion is core to the combo. Guardian Chimera, you've seen it in the game play again and again. This is here for your Branded in red follow-up. Very, very powerful card, frighteningly so. And then you just have a couple of Despia monsters here to fill in the gaps. You have Despian Quiritus and Masquerade the Blazing Dragon, just as additional targets for your Branded in red should you see the need. Again, Masquerade, I haven't been the biggest fan of Masquerade, but to be honest, it is growing on me. I don't understand. You're going against some players and they just sacrifice 6,600, like 7,200 life points instead of dealing with this thing quicker, and then they're putting themselves in massive jeopardy. So a Masquerade is growing on me. I am a bigger fan of it than I was. That's pretty much the deck, to be honest. Everything else past that is up to you. The remaining 11 slots, and getting 11 slots for hand traps is actually pretty decent, because naturally both of these decks are quite big. So they are Thunder Dragons itself doesn't typically play a lot of hand traps, so getting it down to 40 cards and keeping in a decent amount of hand traps and keeping your consistency and keeping your power, it took a little bit of finessing to get this particular version of it working so well, and it does work really well. Like I said, going on 3, 4, 5 win streaks pretty consistently. So big fan of this deck. If you like this, or if you have any alterations you would want to suggest, again, feel free to throw it in the comments, or you can hop into the Discord and basically leave them there directly. And yeah, feel free to subscribe if you want to see more of any suggestions you want to see in terms of videos. And again, any of your big sort of mixes when it comes to Branded, let me know, or any other deck profiles in general you want to see. And that will pretty much wrap us up. I'll see you all in the next one.